Hello and welcome to VEWS on News. I am Jawad. Tehami. The United Nations Security Council will hold an emergency meeting which was requested by both Algeria and Pakistan in the wake of Israeli aggression against Qatar's sovereignty and breach of territorial integrity. We've seen a widespread condemnation regarding this reckless action on the part of Israeli regime and its illegal occupation forces in the Middle East. This particular situation that has developed very fast, we've also known for a fact there's been a strong reaction on the part of Qatari officials, with Amir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani saying Qatar will take all the measures to preserve its sovereignty against blatant Israeli attack. At the same time, there has been a very important statement by Qatar's Prime Minister, which will definitely be looking into, and we'll take the analysis regarding that one as well. But at the same time, as far as the US position and US perspective regarding this particular ongoing situation is concerned, President Trump had told reporters that he was not thrilled about the whole situation. At the same time, the White House press secretary claimed that Qatar was informed beforehand regarding this upcoming strike. Let me quote what the press secretary had to say. President Trump believes Israel's strikes on Hamas targets in Qatar was unfortunate, and he directed a top aide, Steve Witkoff, to warn Qatar the attack was coming. Trump spoke to both Israeli Prime Minister and Amir of Qatar after the strikes. He assured the Qatari leader that such a thing will not happen again on their soil. At the same time, Qatar's foreign ministry spokesperson had said the reports about Qatar being informed of an Israeli attack on Doha beforehand were false, and the call received from one of the US officials was when the sound of explosion was heard. Likewise, Qatar's Prime Minister has called Israel's attack as state terrorism and saying there is a rogue actor in the region, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is leading the region into chaos at an irreversible level. He has also said Israel has sabotaged the negotiations for a ceasefire deal as far as the situation in Gaza is concerned. He has also said American officials contacted Qatari officials 10 minutes after this particular attack. We have also seen some statements coming from Israeli officials. Israel's United Nations ambassador had said, reacting to President Trump's statement, that he was not thrilled about the whole situation, saying, "We don't always act in the interests of the United States of America." At the same time, where the White House press secretary has given assurance on the behalf of President Donald Trump that Qatari leaders were assured that such a thing will not happen again on their soil. We have seen a very contradictory statement coming from another Israel's official, who is Israel's US ambassador, saying Israel would continue targeting Hamas, and that if it had missed any targets during its strike in Doha, it would get them next time. All these important statements, this particular development of a discussion in today's show. For that, we are honored to be joined in the studio by Mr. Air Commodore Basit Raza Abbasi, senior analyst. Mr. Abbasi, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Also in the studio, we are honored to be joined by Dr. Salma Malik. She is expert foreign affairs. Dr. Salma, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. On the video link at the same time, I would be joined by Mr. BalocH. He's the former ambassador. Mr. BalocH, we're looking forward to having an insightful discussion with you as well. Air Commodore Abbasi, and now when we talk about this particular action, what's your, let's try to compare as to what the statements regarding this particular Israel's reckless action has come from both the United States of America, that the Qataris were informed beforehand, but there has been denial of that particular claim with the US officials have made. How are you looking at that?
Actually, it's very clear to me that Americans did know about it, but they didn't want to sort of burst that element of surprise which Israel wanted to achieve. Why I say that? Because 30 miles from the place where this strike took place is the Al Adid base, where the whole CENTCOM is located. they have all the sort of sensors installed there, and they are on a high alert ever since the Iranians' missile attacks at that base. So there is no way that they won't see. Although the arguments, technical arguments, can go on that Israel must have used F-35s, which are stealth and very difficult to detect for any other country, but not for United States, because they would definitely have detected it. And what Mr. Trump, I can give that much benefit of doubt to him that perhaps he got the information late. But the army, the guys sitting there at Adid knew it very well. And I can also sort of guess that it would be a great risk to enter that area, which is guarded by patriots and all sorts of defense and surveillance systems, to enter that area without informing the Americans, because there could have been a sort of fire from the ground also if there was no information.
Right, Mr. Air Commodore Abbasi, but there has been an instant denial on that particular front by the troops stationed in that particular region as well. Well,
this is what I am saying. Now, if you talk of statements, now Donald Trump's, Mr. US President's statements are, to my mind, enigmatic, because he says that he is not happy, whatever word used, they are not thrilled by the attack there. And at the same time, he says that the Hamas leadership is a worthwhile target, a worthy target, perhaps words to that effect. So what does it mean? Is he for the attack or he is against the attack? Is he condemning it or he is green lighting it? I mean, it's anybody's guess, but there's a sort of very vagueness in it. So whatever it is, it has happened. And if you see the route, there's a distance between about 2,250 kilometers between Israel and Doha. So, and that at least they have to travel from two countries. The airspace of two other countries has been violated. Jordan and Saudi Arabia, there is one possible route, and there could be from Jordan and Syria. The other, there are only two routes possible for them to approach Doha from Israel. So it is much wider. Its scope is much wider. Its brutality, its scope, it's much wider. And we have seen that Israel has been striking all these the targets of its choice with complete impunity. There's nobody checking. They struck Lebanon, they struck Yemen, they struck Iran, now Qatar, and maybe I'm forgetting. They sort of attacked 6 countries. So they have complete license to kill, and the world has been condemning. We have been, our throats have gone hoarse condemning it, but there's no change. The ground realities have not changed, and many thought, many people still think that the Greater Israel is a pipe dream, but the ground realities are that Israel is very following that very sort of closely, and they are reaching to that target. And I think the world in general and the Arabs and the Gulf states in particular have to wake up and sort of shun their differences and sort of work out an ironclad agreement of joint agreement. Something like NATO, the Arab NATO, Gulf NATO has to be formed to sort of face this menace, because otherwise individually they will, each will be sort of dealt with according to Israel's wishes.
Right, so I get your point. There are a number of other aspects when we talk about the entire world condemning this reckless action by Israel's regime and its illegal occupation forces in the region. Particularly, two most notable statements that have come forth. The reactions, in fact, from France and the European Union also. Will be taking your analysis regarding those as to what those statements actually depict. Dr. Salma, what's your understanding when we talk about the breach of sovereignty and territorial integrity of an independent state? What sort of options lie with Qatar at this particular point in time? We have seen strong-worded condemnation of this particular reckless act. Also, Qatar's Emir is saying that it preserves the right to, it has the right to preserve its sovereignty. What are the options immediately at the hands of Qataris at the moment?
Thank you so much, Jawad. This is actually a very fascinating situation where Qatar actually has been struck not once but twice. First during the Iran-Israel war, on the last day we had this thing happening. And now this time as well, we find that Qatar has undergone attack, where I absolutely agree with our honorable analyst about the US not being in the picture. But it is a little difficult to really comprehend that was really US on board or not, because I think the US tries to play a good cop and a bad cop situation in this regard, where they try to keep some distance from Israel's blatant violation and allow themselves to maintain that neutrality, which actually the US does not have. Now, about the question of sovereignty, the main problem here is that how are we defining sovereignty in this regard? Is sovereignty any longer really being defined in the terms of the conventional means of sovereignty, especially with these surgical strikes which have become a new norm, and the country is just informing the other country that we are about to just bomb you 5 minutes before the bombing takes place, and then they say, oh, we had informed them. And then these precision surgical strikes, when they say that we haven't attacked your country, we have actually attacked the persons of interest, which are inimical to our security and to your security, and because they were nestled in your country. So we have attacked them, and we have made it sure that no other place is attacked. So that kind of creates a vagueness, which technically is not there when we look at the international laws and norms.
That is, Dr. Salma, I see your pardon for the interjection. That is exactly the point that I'm interested in knowing, that when by looking at the perspective of the United States of America and Israel for a moment, they consider Hamas the Palestinian resistance group which has been fighting against this illegal occupation, right? From their perspective, they consider it a terrorist organization. At the same time, they're in negotiations for a ceasefire deal as far as the situation in Gaza is concerned. Now, if through the perspective of the US, any members of that organization are based somewhere who are at the same time in negotiations for a ceasefire deal, is there any clear-cut provision as far as international law or any provision from within the United Nations Charter, is that there that actually shows us what could be the procedure if there is an element of interest which is based somewhere else in another sovereign country's territory?
You see, the issue here is that Israel is, for the last at least 2 years, and much more before that even, but for these recorded 2 years, Israel by the minute is violating international norms, it's violating Human Rights Charter, it is violating the UN Charter. It has totally disregarded and totally trashed anything that talked about normalcy, it talked about humanity, it talked about respect for human life, human dignity, international law. So for them it doesn't really matter. Wherever they want to strike, they do it, and that is the issue where I disagree with the worthy Air Commodore here, that when he says that the US did not know, I think the US was very much aware. The US has a very strong surveillance, and if there were these enemy objects coming in or the alien objects coming in, if we may use this term, their base would have been activated immediately.
I mean, there are two different points that Mr. Air Commodore Abbasi has mentioned.
Yes.
He was of the view perhaps President Trump, this particular information might have reached President Trump a little late,
Trump
but when it comes to the
true.
troops stationed in that particular area, and it's also talked specifically
they have
about...
been asked to stand down to anything that Israel is doing. So President Trump is very much part of the picture. He just wants to play the good cop here because he wants to once again reinvent the role of a peaceful mediator that he is not. He had in his previous regime actually instigated this entire scenario, and he will only sit and talk about peace when Hamas and the last Palestinians have been butchered and they have been killed, and then there's nothing to defend, and they'll say, oh, there's been an absolute peace in the terms of how the Israeli wants the peace to be brought about. So again, going back to the question of sovereignty and the fact that can Israel indulge in this impunity? Yes, Israel can, Israel has, and Israel will keep on doing it, and it has the silent nod and patronage coming from the US. US is quite mindful.
But under international law, as per the UN Charter, Israel can't do it. Am I correct in
Absolutely
understanding
it
what you
cannot.
say?
Absolutely it
Whether
cannot.
there is an
but
element
there's-
of interest which is located, which is based in that particular territory.
So true. It cannot.
Okay, let
but
me take this
yeah.
particular point to Mr. G.R. BalocH. He's former ambassador joining us on the video link. Mr. G.R. BalocH, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. An element of interest whom with Israel had been in negotiations with, that have been mediated for such a long time by the United States of America, Qatar in particular to be mentioned, and in its territory, those elements of interest, by looking at that so-called, that very perspective of the United States or Israel, is it sanctioned or allowed in any way to take a target into an independent country's territory of such an element of interest which Israel has done?
So the brief answer to this question is no and no and no. The UN Charter very much was meant to actually protect the sovereignty, and that is at the foundation of the United Nations Charter. In fact, we can go even further. We can go to 1648, the Treaty of Westphalia. That was the foundational treaty under which, and again, it was the Europeans themselves which came up with this, that how the sovereignty will be respected. So we leave for a later day discussion. I think we have to look at what has happened. What were the drivers for this action, and what are those? In my view, there are 3-4 aspects of this Israeli dastardly act. One is perhaps it is the disparition of Netanyahu to one way or the other cling to power and prolong that conflict, and ideally enlarge it. Number one. Number two, perhaps again is miscalculated that the world, the Arab world, the Muslim world, which have so far only condemned it, and perhaps they won't go beyond that. But I think this time around, it seems to me, and that's my not only a wish, but my strong conviction, that this time around, the Muslim world and the Arab world would go beyond just the condemnatory statements. Number three, I think its own assumption, and that the war targets, that is eliminating Hamas, they are nowhere near finished. So, and also probably since it got a temporary relief by eliminating the leadership of Hezbollah and Hamas, and there is kind of and other factions in Iraq and Syria, so we thought that probably this strategy works. So, but he doesn't understand that what Hamas represents is the aspirations of the people of Palestine. And then I think another aspect is that if there was a kind of a nod, where are there very strong indications that perhaps at some level there was a nod, or at least there was a knowledge in the power that controls Israel or propels Israeli war machine to launch these aggressive aggressions. Then I think we are looking at it further deterioration in already a lawless world order that we have entered for the past about now, half of it was Israel, and since the new presidency has come up, then there is a new kind of a playbook which is being played.
Right, I think there's a little bit of disconnection. We'll try to reconnect with Mr. G.R. BalocH. Air Commodore Abbasi, now when we specifically talk about the reaction that has come from France and the European Union, the French president in a post on X said the attack against Qatar is unacceptable, whatever the reason may be. And likewise, we have seen the condemnation coming from the European Union as well. There has been talk of sanctions regarding Israel by Ursula von der Leyen, the European Union Commission President. Let me state that any escalation of the war in Gaza must be avoided. Today's airstrike by Israel against Hamas leaders in Doha breaches international law and Qatar's territorial integrity and risks of further escalation of violence in the region. By looking at these two reactions, particularly when you talk about the case of France, it is going to recognize an independent Palestinian state during the upcoming United Nations General Assembly session. And how do you look at this particular statement when he says whatever the reason may be? And is there any substantial concrete reaction from France in particular do you see coming in the coming days? And also, what about the European Union considering any sort of a sanction against Israel?
The statements that you have referred, I think they are just statements. Perhaps I want to say in my heart that it's lip service. There are no concrete actions. And Ursula's, the President of European Union, you made her first line you quoted was that further escalation should be avoided. So whatever has been happening so far has been regularized. That was okay. Don't do anything further. It was not okay. Whatever has been done so far is not okay. And they have not done anything about it concrete. Now they are thinking they may do something. So, I mean, the narrow window is very narrow. Most of Gaza is already destroyed. So many people, 64,000 people have been killed. There is mass starvation going on. 400 people, 440 people have already died. These are very stark statistics. Death of even one person is a tragedy, and this is a catastrophe. And every day a new chapter of this brutality and new dimension of barbarity is being sort of opened up by Israel, and the world just sort of states. And there's another day. Now you're talking of Qatar. Today they have struck Yemen again. So, I mean, there's no sort of remorse or sort of thinking to sort of scaling back. It will only increase further. The world statements would be there. Now recognizing a Palestine state, when there's no Palestinians, they have been pushed out of their lands. Their homes and their hospitals and their hearts, everything has been destroyed. And which Palestinian state are you going to destroy, to recognize? One which has been decimated, its people have been sort of either killed or thrown out from their lands. So this is something, a classic case of, I think perhaps there will be strong words.
But there has been a reaction to that very move that France is going to make, the recognition of independent Palestinian state, the reaction from the Israeli side, who consider that this move is going to put the stability and peace of the region more into jeopardy with this particular move. And if they are going to recognize a state which has already been decimated, so why would this reaction be coming from Israel?
I don't think that this is going to sort of change the realities on ground. The barbarism, the brutal actions, whatever is cascading upwards. It's not spiraling down.
What are the options when Qatar's Amir says that they have the right to preserve their sovereignty, territorial integrity after this blatant attack by Israelis? Are there any options in terms of kinetic means at the hands of Qataris in this particular scenario?
He's a very respected person, Amir of Qatar, and he's been actually leading the sort of campaign to sort of bring this disastrous, brutal war to an end. So we respect him for that. But my only fear is that Israel is too strong, as Egypt discovered in the war, the last war that they had, when they were actually sort of advancing, and then when Americans intervened, they had to sort of draw back. And Anwar Sadat straight away went for an agreement with Israel, and his statement is very remarkable. He said that we can fight Israel, but we cannot fight United States. So that is the ground reality. So long as the United States is at the beck and call of Israel, I think it will be sort of difficult to tackle this giant. He's like that. If you remember the mythology, the Ulysses, when he was sort of trapped by that ogre in his cave, and he was eating a person every day, and Ulysses very sort of he was the sly Ulysses. He sort of managed to sort of sort of puncture the eye of that one-eyed giant. So and then he got out. So he was throwing rocks here and there, and Israel is, to me, appears like that ogre who is trying rocks, and these are not rocks actually, these are bombs which are sort of creating havoc wherever they fall. They have done it to Lebanon, they have done it to Iran, they have done it to Yemen and Syria, and now Qatar. So as I just said in the beginning also, that it is that desire to sort of rise against Israel is very welcome. I wish it had sort of come some times back, because for 2 years all these nations, I mean no exceptions, all the Muslims, I would blame the Muslims first, and then the other nations, have been silently watching whatever. They have been condemning, but they are only words. In material terms, nothing has happened. Nothing has been, nobody has stopped supplying arms. Nobody has sort of, the money flow is going. Israel has no economy. Israel has no resources to produce weapons at large scale to wage a war for 2 years.
So what about this statement by the EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen saying that EU may put bilateral support for Israel on hold as part of proposed measures that include sanctions on extremist ministers and violent settlers?
If you allow me to read a verse from Urdu poetry. मिट जाएगी मखलूक तो इंसाफ करोगे, मुंसिफ हो तो अब हश्र उठा क्यों नहीं देते. So when everything will be destroyed, and then you will come and sort of pronounce your judgment, and then there will be sort of all that thing. So I think it's very late. These statements are very late. The window of opportunity for peaceful settlement is closing very fast, and there's hardly a ray coming out at the moment, and this may shut any time. So whatever these great leaders are saying, I wish they do something substantive, and I don't see it coming in the near future.
Right. Dr. Salma, how do you look at this particular possibility and the statement by EU Commission President saying you may put bilateral support for Israel on hold as part of proposed measures that include sanctions on extremist ministers and the illegal and violent settlers? There's been a condemnation by Israel's foreign minister regarding this particular move.
Yes, so the condemnation is there. Much depends on whether they actually implement sanctions and they become effective. Let's say if they're using a UN process, although what is being hinted towards is an EU and a bilateral sanction, so that has a very different flavor to it. But I totally concur with the point the worthy Air Commodore has just pointed out, that I mean the action is happening a little too late, too little and too late, right? What has been left for the Palestinians is hardly morsels to pick. They have an entire generation of children who are either amputees, they are sickly children, they are malnutrition, they are traumatized. So you have an extremely dying and sick, yet very, very resilient people who are going to be soon rendered stateless. Now, the condemnation that is coming from countries around the globe that we are witnessing since last evening primarily is also as an act of self-preservation, where Jordan and all of these countries, they don't want Israel to do what has been done to Qatar, or they become a part of the ground zero. Jordan has and many of the neighboring countries have actually done that. Those countries which were defined, the US along with Israel has made a big example out of them. Syria is a case in point, but other countries are trying to see to it that nothing happens in their homeland. As for Qatar, again, I'm saying that Qatar had previously faced a surgical strike, and it has done now. Would the Emir of Qatar actually contemplate a kinetic action? That would mean the horizon and the overall canvas of the war going beyond what it is now. And this has been an attempt by most of the countries around Israel, Palestine, and the region at large, that the canvas of the war does not expand horizontally. They've been trying to avoid it, and that is why it's been a very, very scapegoatist approach by these countries. Even if the Israelis would say that, why don't you people take the Palestinians and rehome them in your territories, and there was never a very, very positive approach or a positive response to that. So every country is trying to self-preserve, every country is trying to act safe, they are trying to look very moralistic and ethical, but the very fact is that no one has actually taken the courage to join hands and become a potent force and stand against Israel, and also stand against the US and condemn what Israel is doing. Had there been even a token condemnation, and not even a month, even a days long complete sanction on Israeli and American products, even the economic fallout of that would have been so great that these two countries would have been shaken to bits. But they are not doing that. And again, the fact is that even if there is the EU, which is planning to do what it is doing, much depends on how individual EU member states respond to this particular action, because UK at the moment is one of the top arms exporters to Israel. And would they all unanimously, because we are talking about EU, so it has to be an EU sanction, so are they unanimously really going for this thing or not? Or would this also again remain just a verbal statement of condemnation?
I get your point. There is one other important point. I'll come back to you. Mr. G.R. BalocH, we are reconnected to him once again. Mr. G.R. BalocH, now Qatar has directed a legal team to look into holding Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responsible for the breach of international law. Is there any sort of a possibility, if this case is taken to the International Court of Justice, can it be taken, can it come under the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice? Is that a possibility, or are there any other legal options that rest with the Qataris at the moment?
Yeah, I think there are several like procedural and legal avenues that are available, and I think this is where I think the Arabs would go. I mean, they won't go obviously for the kinetic reaction, or when Qatar says that it will not be, that it reserves the right to retaliate. So at the first stance, it won't be a kinetic retaliation. Most likely, it could come up in the shape of a UN Security Council resolution under Article 2, which gives right of, like, it gives, it prohibits the use or threat of use of force by one state to the other. And then read with that is Article 39. Then it authorizes the Security Council to then sanction or whatever measures have to be taken against that state, against that organization or individuals. And then having exhausted that, perhaps then they'll go to the International Court of Justice, if at all they can do is to have simultaneously go to International Court of Justice, as well as invoke Article 2 and Article 39 in the United Nations Security Council. So I think this is where the battle will lie now at the point of time, that there will be a legal battle in these two forums. And also, I think there might be now a more restraining orders informally or formally on Israel to rethink beyond just the war. Because what has happened is that Netanyahu's own survival war has taken the region almost to the brink of a broader war.
To hold an emergency meeting today in the wake of this Israel's reckless action, is there any substantial thing that you are expecting at this point in time from this particular emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council?
Yeah, definitely. I think there will be obviously condemnation, and there would be a call for a yet another resolution condemning, and then invoking perhaps Article 2 that they should do it. This is the time now. They didn't do it when it violated Iran's territorial integrity, when it violated the territorial integrity of Lebanon, Syria.
Pardon for the interjection over here. Do you think it's going to have the unanimity of all the P5 and the rest of the members of the United Nations Security Council, given the fact there are two highly contradicting statements from the United States of America, when They say that President Trump was not very much thrilled what has happened in Qatar. Then also the White House press secretary assuring the Qataris that such a thing will not happen again on their soil. At the same time, Israel's US ambassador says Israel would continue targeting Hamas, and that if it had missed any targets during its strike in Doha, it would get them next time.
Yeah, I tell you what, the answer to this question, which is coming to mind, might look what was, but that is a fact. Now at stake is the entire global world order, so-called rule-based world order. Whether the world wants it or not, do these now P5, they want to be guarantors for what they themselves came up with. They are the founders, they are the founder members of the organization and its charter. Do they want to stand for the charter they sign in and promise and they kind of swear by that they will stand by the rules? But now here is, they want to give an exception to Israel, then there will be several others who will take this civilization. This is one part of the response to your question. The other, I have to say it, sir, this is a civilizational kind of, I would say, challenge for the Muslims and the Arabs. It is just not only the identity, the cultural and ethnic and cultural and social identity of Palestinian which is being decimated. It will be the civilizational defeat of the Muslims and the Arabs. We would not, if Netanyahu continues on it, what he is doing, that today, Qatar, then Jordan, and so on and so forth, and Saudi Arabia, Allah, may God protect all these places. But who knows? So I think, in my view, the point of almost a red line has been crossed by Israel. Now the leadership, Arab leadership, the Muslim leadership has to realize that. And those countries which believe that this world, whatever tattered it is in terms of the rule of law, we cannot become a Hobbesian state of nature world where...
Yeah, BalocH, former ambassador, joining us on the video link. Thank you very much for taking time out for Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. Dr. Salma Malik, expert foreign affairs, thank you very much for your time. And Mr. Air Commodore Basit, Raza, Abbasi, senior analyst, thank you very much for your time also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.